feeling free and it feels so right. Oh, time to do the things I like. Gonna see a princess, everything's alright. Oh, no job but an answer to. Ain't a fixture in the palace zoo. No, and since the carbonite's off me, I'm living life now that I'm free. Yeah, told me get myself together. Now I got myself together. Now I made it through the weather. Better days are gonna get better. I'm so happy the carbonite is gone. I'm moving on. I'm so happy that it's over now. The pain is gone. I'm putting on my shades to cover up my eyes. I'm jumping in my ride. I'm heading out tonight. I'm solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo. Solo. I'm picking up my plaster, putting it on my side. I'm jumping in my Falcon. Whoopie at my side. I'm solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I'm your host Caleb.
I'm Seth. I talk Star Wars with this man.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. Sometimes we talk about other things that aren't Star Wars.
Let's go ahead, speaking of other things, before we get into today's show, we like to do a thing where we just kind of talk about what we've been up to this week. And we've done a couple things this week besides Star Wars. And this is kind of our chance to talk other fandoms and stuff. So, I'll go ahead and start because I have a handful of things.
Yeah.
I'll do one that's combined. We watched Krull.
Yes.
Which my first time watching Krull.
Mm-hmm.
That's Krull. Because I also was confused about the spelling until we finally watched it. Funny enough, I found out we could have watched it for free because you paid to rent it, and I was like, I would have been able to. That was really what I meant by that message. That's what I meant by sending that text.
I was like,
you were so offended. I was like, no, I mean,
I'm still not buying it.
Like, I didn't correct your what you took from it, but like, I guess later on you figured what I meant.
I just said that and I didn't think about that for the rest of the week.
Yeah, no, I meant
There's an ongoing thing about me and gaming.
Yeah, and that you don't really do it, but you do. Like, you play single-player games, but also you won't do them on your computer.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there's so many games on the computer, even
it
on
Chromebook.
Chromebook.
It would be more accurate to say that while I don't have the space to play games on my computer.
Yeah.
In my defense, it's a computer I've had for like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. I mean...
Before college is how long I have had that computer.
The other thing is you are stubborn on upgrading as well, which is... I would say it's time. Even if you get another Chromebook, I know that. Yeah, I would say it's time.
I know that because but I don't want to.
Even if it's another Chromebook, like I would say do it just so you have more space at the very least. Cuz that's the main issue is like at least have more space for things. Cuz it runs out fast.
Yeah.
Like there's only... Well, did you ever manage to get Icewind Dale on there?
No.
Oh, no.
I think we stopped trying to install it, and then we were like, we'll just watch Krull instead.
Yeah, we'll watch Krull instead, because we were ready to watch Krull.
So, Krull is a movie, like, I watched several times as a child. First time for you, though.
Yes, and so it was basically... I'm going to give my outside interpretation of the story.
Absolutely.
Without any major spoilers, I'm just going to kind of
It's a 40-year-old movie.
Yeah, so it's from the 80s.
Spoiler warning is long. You ain't got to worry about that shit.
It's a 2-hour movie. I'm not going to give like any spoilers. I'm just going to kind of give the broad stroke. It's a sword and sorcery, sci-fi, fantasy movie. With a lot of inspiration from a lot of things. Because there's some inspiration from Lord of the Rings that we kept making fun of as we were watching it. And I think it takes those inspirations very well in stride. It makes its own original thing. Not all the ideas 100% work. Like, there were things where we talked about, I was like, they could have cut this and given more time for that. Because I see where they were going with certain stuff.
Hello there.
Hey, Dustin. That's my
Not that kind of stroke.
Yeah. But, like, I would, like, there were certain things I would have changed that I think would have made the points they were trying to make on certain characters work better. I think there were too many characters, really.
Oh, yeah. Fucking Ace Hardware.
Yeah, it's hardware. There's a guy that just looks like a guy.
Yeah,
Like
like everyone else looks like they're in like
a fantasy sci-fi setting.
That guy doesn't.
No. But no, and so like I would have maybe killed some of them off sooner. Because that's what most of them were there for, were to be meat for the grinder.
So many of them.
Like a lot of them were just there to be for the grinder, and just dead within like maybe 5 minutes of meeting some of them. Like the wizard, which I would have cut him out of the film entirely.
Emerald Seer got fucking murdered so hard.
Yeah, I would have cut the seer out completely personally.
But if he was cut out, we wouldn't have got the great scene of the beast fucking hand exploding.
Some other inspiration that it obviously took, some stuff that I didn't mention while we were watching it, but thought about it today. Dune. Because by then the Dune movie, the original movie had come out, the David Lynch one. And so I think that there's definitely some inspiration there, especially with the matte paintings and the design of the planet. Because it has that, it's got the Dune desert, but then it also has other biomes.
Yeah, I was like, I remember while we were watching, I was like, oh, by the way, this isn't a one biome planet.
Yeah, it's got like a whole, it's basically Earth too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's got a little bit of that. It's got a little bit of Star Wars, because obviously Star Wars was out by this point.
Yeah, Return of the Jedi beat its ass at the box office, because I think they came out the same year.
That sounds about right.
Which I'm like, oh, well, no wonder it didn't become as popular. Because you love Return of the Jedi, it's kind of hard to beat that one.
Let me double check that. I am curious. Were they both 82 then? Because I think
82, 83.
Because I think Return of the Jedi 83. Yeah, so 83. May 25th. Kroll was in 1983 as well. Let's see if it was the same weekend. It was like a month after, but I mean, I'd imagine Return of the Jedi was still pumping the numbers like every Star Wars film does, especially back then, where they would play forever. Yeah. So, because back then a movie could be in theaters like a year. Yeah. So like, yeah, I would imagine Return of the Jedi was just still beating up Kroll even after.
The antagonist-protagonist score is fucking main antagonist for that movie up 50.
And it's also got some Eldritch stuff going on.
Oh yeah, you saw that and you were like, well, this explains a lot.
Yeah, because you're into Eldritch. And you're into, like, some fantasy sci-fi tropes, and I think a lot of those tropes appear in this movie. And so I think a lot of that stuff definitely... Because you said you watched this a lot as a kid, so it definitely defines you.
There was a lot of, like...
There's stuff that, looking back, it's like, oh, maybe it's kind of weird you saw that as a kid, but not nothing too crazy. Just the Eldritch stuff, a lot of the Eldritch stuff.
Oh, just the fact that there's, like, just weird bones and teeth scattered throughout that fucking awful place.
Yeah, a lot of the Eldritch stuff, nothing like crazy, but like stuff that's like, oh, it's like 80s stuff where there's definitely like, there was a thing with 80s kids films, because I would imagine Kroll was for like a younger audience.
Kroll, Highlander.
Highlander's not. Highlander was rated R.
I watched that movie as a child too. Apparently my brain like
forgot that. But like it was a rated R film, whereas Kroll was at least, I would imagine, was marketed to.
I have no idea.
Well, you weren't. Neither of us were alive at the time. So. But a lot of 80s films like that were aimed towards children and young adults, and then they would have like some darker tones to them that you don't really get nowadays. Even in the 90s, you kind of started to lose some of that. And I think it's coming back. I think a lot of that idea of darker tones and younger audience stuff is coming back.
We didn't fucking intro. The setup for like the movie is, man, it sucks that my wife got kidnapped and my dad got shot to death on the same day.
Yeah, but that was one thing we did this week. Other stuff I've done. If you've been watching the channel, I've been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because that dropped this week. I'm currently in Chapter 3 now. No, Chapter 4. Chapter 4.
Yeah, I saw that. I haven't stopped to watch it.
Yeah, I'm gonna re-upload part 2 for YouTube because it like kept.
Oh yeah.
Because the way I'm streaming it on on everything else outside of Twitch is it's kind of bugging out sometimes because the Wi-Fi wasn't strong that day, so it kind of.
Yeah.
So I re-uploaded part 1 because I missed some of it on the YouTube upload, like the first few minutes, but on the Twitch one it was fine, so I just downloaded the Twitch one and I re-uploaded part 1 on YouTube. It should be done, but it was like it's an 11-hour stream for part 1, so pace yourself watching it. I did not pace myself playing it because I was off that day and I was just having fun. It is up. It's up now, as of 10 and a half hours ago. So last night it went up.
You just said to hell with it.
So yeah, I was just having fun. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm not going to spoil it because it is just coming out. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm still experiencing it. So obviously, so many other people are going to be still experiencing it. So, no spoilers yet, but I am having a good time. And that's all I will say. Trying to think what else I did this week. That's about it.
I'm trying to think if I did anything else that like.
That's like of note.
Yeah. I've reached a stall out point in my Fallout playthrough.
You're kind of just taking a break.
No,
is it not are you not invested at the moment and you're kind of just.
Yeah, I'm like I've got to the point like level 56, but I'm also like I would finish the story out, except I don't know how to do that.
Oh,
like I could continue following like this quest line, but I don't want to because I fucked it up. And I think I broke another quest line, so I can't do that one either.
So is this going to be you take a break and then you come back to it and restart just to kind of...
I might have to. I don't want to.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. It happens. I mean, especially when it's when you're basically doing a blind run. Like, I assume you look some stuff up, but you're not looking everything.
Stuff, like, when it's like, oh, I don't know where the fuck this is.
Yeah, Like you're just legitimately lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like when I'm like, I know it's here in this room, but I can't find the fucking thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's on the underside of this table.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I would like to do this in a fair manner.
4.
4 at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I've already done 3 in New Vegas a couple of times.
3 in New Vegas is his main bread and butter, and so...
I did the DLCs for 4.
Yeah.
I shot so many people. Which I guess is just a thing that characters I play do.
Yeah.
I do remember wandering through town one day, and like, so you know how NPCs will have ambient dialogue?
Yeah.
One of the kids walked past me and said, "Oh, you're an outsider, mister? My dad says to stay away from outsiders because they shoot people. Do you shoot people, mister?" And my immediate response was, sometimes.
He did not enjoy Nuka World as much.
Nuka World was okay. I didn't like the setup for it.
Yeah, you like the everything else besides the main plot of Nuka World.
The side quests for Nuka World were great. Except for the part where they wanted me to be an overboss for raiders. Which is the main plot line of that.
Yeah. You just weren't a fan of the main plot.
Yeah.
You liked everything else surrounding it, but yeah. But yeah, speaking of video games, I guess, let's go ahead and get into some Star Wars news for this week. And we're going to start actually on a down note, on a lower... Yeah, unfortunately, so it turns out that the rumored Respawn first-person shooter game we talked about last week was real. Unfortunately, the reason that we know it was real is that it has been officially canceled.
You know, I wasn't mad about this.
Like, you weren't that mad when I first told you, but now that you've sat here and had a chance... Because when we got here, I told you the news, because I was like, I should just mention that one. And especially because, like, you like first-person shooter type games to a degree. Cool with them. Yeah. You're not, like, into every type of first-person shooter, but you like...
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel like something from Respawn, which is like, you know, that Apex Legends and / Titanfall kind of combat where a lot of it would have been terrain and like agility based, like that would have been fun to have in a Star Wars game. And so, because it would have been basically the same controls pretty much for Jedi games, because, you know, it's Respawn. Yeah. Except you would have been a Mandalorian shooting things, and that would have been fun, but it sounds like...
But no...
I did not write this in the script, but there were a couple other ones. One of them is really, really rumored, which is why I didn't put it in the script, but we'll go ahead and talk about it. Maybe there's a Star Wars game being made by Activision, and I put that with a really, really heavy grain of salt. Like, instead of just saying, yeah, just take a grain of salt, no, I'm saying take the whole pound.
That maybe is that...
So the reason why that rumor...
with double question marks.
So the reason this rumor exists is because Ahmed Best, a.k.a. Jar Jar Binks, a.k.a. Kelleran Beck, because he plays both Jar Jar and Kelleran Beck for Mandalorian, was seen... He posted on his Instagram a picture of him in the full, like, mocap type suit that you see in video games when they make cutscenes and stuff, and video games, and then, you know, try to get all the actions of a character. And he, like, talked about how, like, he just, like, made a post talking about how he's working on something, and then he put, like, hashtag Kelleran Beck, hashtag, like, Star Wars, hashtag Activision. And then another picture that came out later from a different person showed him, Ahmed Best, at Activision. And so, right now, and, like, the reason people are thinking, well, maybe it's a Star Wars thing is because of his hashtags. But also, he could just be doing a different game for Activision just as Ahmed Best, playing a different character. Because it would be nice to see him go out further than Star Wars, because I think he's a talented actor who could definitely do a lot. And unfortunately, because of how the community treated him during the prequel era, that kind of derailed things a lot, both on a emotional level and on a professional level. Because, I mean, we talked about it. Trigger warning, he tried to commit because of how the community treated him at the time. And it's a lot...
Yeah, it can be rough sometimes.
Yeah. And, I mean, we still see that kind of treatment to the Star Wars actors to this day, so it's kind of rough seeing that. And... but yeah, thankfully, I mean, the community has been very open to him returning. They've kind of done a full 180 and kind of embraced him now as part of the community. And I'm glad that he's getting that recognition that he kind of always kind of deserved, because even as Jar Jar Binks, while you may not have enjoyed the character, I, as a kid, enjoyed the character. My dad enjoys the character, and he loves the original films. Like, he loves Jar Jar. Like, unironically.
I am, to this day, like, almost confused by, like, the level of,
hate?
Yeah. I'm like, okay, you didn't like him that much. That's fine.
Like, the humor didn't work for you. And there are problematic parts of Jar Jar.
I don't remember laughing at Jar Jar very much as a child, but I'm like, he's a character in this. That's cool, I guess.
And there are some problematic stuff that we talked about with how George Lucas unintentionally, you know, how he unintentionally creates characters based off certain cultures, and Jar Jar is definitely in one of those. But I think overall the positives that Jar Jar has outweighs the negatives. For me, and I think for a lot of people.
I am still neutral.
You are neutral, but that's still, you know, something.
Yeah.
I think once we get to Clone Wars, because I think Clone Wars is where we get peak Jar Jar.
A lot of, like,
I think they get
character insight.
I think they get the humor the best.
The better.
Yeah, like, I think the movies, well, 2 and 3 don't really do Jar Jar humor. They kind of, at that point, George kind of made Jar Jar more serious a little bit. Like, he was still Jar Jar, but he was like, he wasn't doing any antics or any stunt humor by that point. But yeah, so I'm curious to see if they are doing something, going back to the main news. Because Disney and Lucasfilm Games, which is the new name for the video game side, they've been more open to other companies licensing out Star Wars now that they're done with working with just EA exclusively. So I am curious, because they've now worked with Epic a few times, even buying out a good chunk of Epic to work on that project that we talked about a few weeks back. So they're working with bigger companies as well. So Activision is one of the biggest gaming companies out there. I mean, we're talking Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also I guess Blizzard and World of Warcraft, and since they bought Blizzard out. So that's pretty big. The other one that I didn't make a note of is, there was another one I didn't make a note of, but I thought was interesting in hindsight. I'll talk about the one that I did make a note of in the meantime. Dark Forces Remaster is officially out as of this week. I've gotten to play some of it. I think so far, from what I played, it was worth the $30, because that was, some speculation, which is also still going. That's also a similar debate going on with the Battlefront collection. Is the $35 for Battlefront going to be worth it? As far as the Dark Forces Remaster, I think so. They not only went ahead and kind of brought the game to a higher resolution, but they also enhanced the cutscenes, and they added some behind-the-scenes art on the making of the original game. And they included the original starting level that was cut from the game. So it turns out the original first level of Kyle Katarn stealing the Death Star plans was not going to take place in a standard Imperial facility, but on a Star Destroyer called the Avenger, and would end with Kyle stealing a TIE fighter to escape once he had the plans. The reason that the level was scrapped and replaced eventually was LucasArts decided the level was too difficult for first-time players as the first level, as it required the ability to find secret doors and tunnels to get to the Death Star plans themselves, which you need to finish the level. So this isn't, there's some secret areas to find. No, you got to find the secret areas to get to the main stuff. I actually went ahead and played the level, and I think I did fine, but I also have played a lot of Dark Forces and a lot of these type of Doom-like games. If you've played a Doom-like, you kind of know to look, especially old school Doom-likes, to look for secret doors, to find that type of stuff. But obviously, if you've never done that stuff, which is what they thought about, they were like, oh, if nobody's ever played a Doom-like, because Doom also just came out the year before when this game came out. It's only a 1 year difference between Doom and this. They realized, we should probably make it a little easier. I think we should make Seth play the secret level.
Don't do this.
We'll do it for the channel. We'll also let you play the actual first level afterwards, but I think it'll be fun. We'll just do those. We'll do those levels because I know you don't want to. I know you don't want to play the whole game, so we'll just do the Avenger and the first level.
Fine, I'll do that.
Because I know you don't want to sit and play the whole game. I'm almost done with the. I already got my. They added trophies as well and achievements for the remaster because obviously it's technically a new game. Mm-hmm. My first trophy was killing the mouse droid. Because when you kill the mouse droid, you get a trophy.
Okay.
Because, the little mouse droids. Because you can shoot them. You get batteries for some of your tech.
Oh, so there's a reason.
Yeah, you get stuff when you kill them, but, it's still, you killed a poor mouse droid still. But they are also really hard to shoot, because they are fast. Fast as fuck, boy. I'm trying to find that other thing I wanted to talk about. There was one more thing for games. I can't find it right now. Sorry, it's gonna bug me if I can't find it. I gotta talk about it real quick, and then we'll transition. If you have something in the meantime.
So, sorry if I don't seem as excited. For our long-term viewers, you know what that means. It means that I went to bed a bit later than I was supposed to.
Which we all did.
Yeah. I stayed up because
we
Haley
stayed up
and
till
E-
at least 2,
to
and then you stayed up
I
longer.
stayed up
it sounds.
longer because Haley and Eli came over and ended up going to bed at 3 in the morning.
So it became a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that is it for video game news.
All
Okay.
We played game for a little bit.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and jump into High Republic news, which is kind of comic news. I didn't like last week we did book news. I guess this is book news. We
Book
have
news, our new section.
well, because I'm trying to like section off each like topic based off like video game, television, books. For book news, we have the final cover for the Edge of Balance Volume 3 manga, where we see... Oh, sorry, wrong picture. I meant to... No.
Nope.
Where'd I put it? Can't find it. I had it ready. Where'd it go?
You set it up earlier. Like, I saw you do that. But I don't know where you put it.
No. Oh, found it. There we go. Technical difficulties. Yeah, so there it is. Where we see Master Arkoff, our Wookiee friend, in a wintry environment, which actually continues a theme for the main Edge of Balance mangas, that the cover artist Mizuki... I'm about to butcher this. I'm so sorry. Sakakabara? Sakakabara. Yeah, Sakakabara.
Yeah.
Mizuki Sakakabara talked about in that each of the volumes has the character in a different seasonal environment. And I don't know if... I didn't realize this till I read this. And I don't know if you noticed it. So...
No, but thinking back on it, they're right.
Yeah, so Lily was in autumn. Kieran was in summer. And Arkoff is in winter. With this... And they are, like, thematically to make sense as well. So with winter, volume 3 being their toughest time, similar to the harshness of winter. And then he said that, but with volume 4, after winter comes the spring. So then we kind of get a, potentially happy ending to everything with volume 4. So, of the main, because there is that phase 2 one as well, the Edge of Balance, but that wasn't part of the main 4 volumes. Yeah. So yeah, I like the cover.
Yeah,
and hearing the thought process of how the art was designed is really interesting, and I like that as well. I like hearing that type of stuff, and the thought, because you don't design a character design without thought into like the character and the story. That is stuff that goes into it. So lastly, we are going to go into television news. So with the final season of The Bad Batch currently airing, we have received some news that shows that Lucasfilm Animation will not be slowing down after the show.
Okay.
And in fact is ramping up for something.
Oh no.
As they officially announced on their social media that they are looking for more animators.
All right.
So they are working on another show, I would imagine, because that's what it tells me. Because Bad Batch is ending. We haven't heard news of anything outside of... I mean, we know that Season 2 of Young Jedi Adventures is happening, but that's not Lucasfilm... I mean, that might be Lucasfilm Animation's department, but I would imagine that's, like, whatever department Disney Junior Animation works under. Whatever, but it might be Lucasfilm Animation. I don't exactly have the insider information on that side of, like, how that works and operates. So I'm going to be transparent there that I don't know that. But it does sound like that they're ramping things up if they're hiring more people. So to me, this is a great sign for Star Wars, or at least Lucasfilm Animation, that it's probably not going to die ever. And also, this is with a lot of major companies currently going through with some of the biggest layoffs in job market history. It's a positive thing to see that there's some major hiring still going on instead. Yeah. Especially with a lot of television studios performing these layoffs just as a major show is launched. Like, I forget which show it was, but Amazon like dropped one of their big shows, and then like as the show launches, they're like, all right, laying off all these people. I think that actually happened with the new Avatar show with Netflix. I think Netflix did that too. I think Netflix was like, all right, Avatar show drop, fire all these people.
Damn.
And it's just like, this is your big show. It just came out. You're not even going to see how it does. Whereas if Lucasfilm were to like do some layoffs right now, it would make sense because a show is ending. They like they're not, as far as we know, another show is not launching. So if they were to do some layoffs, it would make sense. Now it would still be bad. That my point is that it is bad. That this is a practice, but because I do want to make that clear, I would just say it's more understandable if they were to do it now, versus how every other studio has been doing it. But at the same time, I think it's even better that they're hiring people instead as a show is ending. Because that tells me that they're planning more and that they want to also keep people in animation and kind of... Because I think animation is still important, especially Star Wars. Like, a lot of people say that Star Wars animated is probably better than the live action, depending who you ask. Depending who you ask.
Hold on. You didn't hear what I was going to say.
Oh. Are you about to agree to that?
Yes.
Okay. I was ready. I was half ready.
You were like, what's he going to do? I got to be ready because he might say something.
You might say the opposite.
What do you mean? Clearly real people are always better.
But yeah, go ahead. Say what you want to say about that.
What I was going to say is, yeah. I like the animations. I like the pretty lights.
The pretty colors and the peoples.
I like the pretty colors and the sound.
and the swing and the we have fun here.
But also, like, there's some things that you can't capture with animation, and there's some things that you can do with animation that doesn't put people in unnecessary risk.
Yeah, like there's some stuff you just can't do in live action. Like especially like with sci-fi, something as big as sci-fi.
It's one of those things where I like both of the mediums.
Yeah. All right, and with that, let's go ahead and get into our main topic because that is it for news. So spoiler warning for today's subject.
For the entire book, by the way. We didn't read half of it.
Star Wars Queen's Shadow by E.K. Johnston, which is the first I put this in the description. I have to go through this. It's the first published of the Queen's Trilogy, the second chronologically, but the last one that we are talking about because we have already talked about the other two.
I remember talking with you about this. I'm like, what is this weird fucking reading order you've got me?
Well, so Queen's Hope, the last one, which is on the shelf up there. It's near like Revenge of the Sith era, so that'd be that third block, I think. Anyways,
it's up there somewhere.
Yeah. So it had just come out because our policy is if something just comes out, we read that. So that one had came out during the first season of the show, so we had to read that one, which meant we read the last book first together. I had already read the other two.
You had context that I did not have.
Not that you really need a lot of context for these books.
No, you don't.
I would say like the context you need is the movies.
Mm-hmm. And that was context I already had.
Yeah. Like if you have the context of the prequels, you have the context you need for the Queen's Trilogy. And I think that's a well laid out. The only context outside of that is like the relationship between Padme and the Handmaidens.
Yep.
And because like the Handmaidens, I don't like Padme is the main character, but I would argue Sabe is the next biggest main character of this book, or even in the entire trilogy. Like the relationship between Padme and Sabe is the core of the Queen's Trilogy. Having now read all three together.
Yeah.
So This one being the first is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't get the early parts of the relationship.
No, you don't.
Because this starts after episode 1's happened.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of have to... EK kind of has to describe the relationship and stuff that we missed.
Yeah.
Now, she goes back and we get to see that with Queen's Peril, which is the next published book. But the first chronologically. So we get to see that, and we talked about it this season. Queen's Peril was this season. Oh, no, it was the end of last season. End of last season. It was one of the last books we did.
Yeah.
And so we got to see that relationship in Queen's Peril, but here it kind of has to just be described, which might be one of the weaker parts of this book, is having to describe, like, I think she does it fine, but it is a situation where, because of the order that she wrote these in, which I mean, that might have been the order that the publishers came up with, like, they decided, like, maybe she pitched them doing a Padme book, or they came to her, really, because that's how a lot of the... Well, she had already done Ahsoka by now, so she had done the Ahsoka book, which we haven't talked about yet. We talked about on the show, but we haven't read it for the show. We've talked about it because of Tales of the Jedi controversy regarding that book, but we haven't read it for the show yet. But EK wrote that as well, so I think they probably approached her still, because that's only one book that she's done for them, and usually until you get more notoriety within like major IP publishing, they come to you, not you go to them. You don't get to be like, hey, I'm gonna pitch an idea. They go, hey, we have an idea, we want an author, do you want to write this? Like, this seems like your style, would you write this? And that's kind of how it works in IP publishing, is they approach you, you don't approach them, unless you're like a Timothy Zahn or a Claudia Gray.
Yeah,
like, you got to be up there before you can start coming to them. I think EK now could do that, like, now that she's done 4 major books for them. So I think she could easily go, hey, I want to do this now, but before then, I don't. By when Queen's Shadow was coming out, I think they came to her. So they were like, hey, we want a book that takes place in between 2 and 3, kind of explaining Padme.
Yeah.
I think that was the pitch, and I think she bounced the idea of... I think she came up with the idea of probably the Handmaidens being a major part of that. And Sabe in particular. Sabe is, like I said, I'd argue Sabe might be more of a main character than Padme. It'd be a tough argument, but I think I could win it.
I would say that the most apt term for Sabe...
I mean, they're both, like...
is a deuteragonist.
Yeah, they're very deuteragonist, yeah. But I was like, if you're going to pick one, I would almost pick Sabe. Mainly because the epilogue.
Yeah. Sabe's like, what the fuck? None of this makes sense.
Like, yeah, Queen Shadow, with its epilogue, Queen Shadow alone, at least, is definitely Sabe's story. With Padme as a deuteragonist, but... Like, I could easily make the argument that it's Sabe's book if we were to pick one protagonist. Thankfully, we don't have to.
Sometimes, like, with stories like the Queen Trilogy, when you have, like, 2 main characters, sometimes people get really mad at it because they're like, oh, well, then this almost, like, a slight bit of character assassination happens. I don't feel that way about it.
No, I mean, I think... And honestly, a lot of the stuff that people are mad about with the Queen's Trilogy don't come from this book. Most of the anger comes from Queen's Hope, at least in the how EK writes Anakin and Padme's relationship, because she makes it seem a lot better than it probably was. And so a lot of people don't like that, but...
Sabe essentially calling a fun moment is Sabe calling R2 out for snitching to Padme about the relationship between her and Tanra at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, so this book does a lot of carrying of some stuff, like answering some stuff between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So the main topic, so one of the main things going on is Padme is transitioning from queen to senator.
Yeah.
Because obviously we know that she makes that transition at some point in between.
Yeah. This does clear up a lot of confusion that we still don't know what the fuck is up with C.O. Bibble.
Yeah, because he retired.
Yeah, he retired.
So, which means he didn't lose any. Like, he could have probably been elected again, like the way it's termed. But when Padme, major spoiler for, I guess, the epilogue takes place. The epilogue takes place after the funeral in Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
So when Padme dies in Revenge of the Sith, C.O. Bibble steps down, because that was one of the things we talked about, was like, how does like the governing body of Naboo work? Because the one thing we know absolutely for sure is that the queen or king, because it could be a king, but it's mostly been queens, is elected every 2 years, and they only get 2 terms, so 4 years total. Governor, we're not sure, because C.O. Bibble is governor in the Phantom Menace, because he's the one that's like, a communications disruption can only mean one thing: invasion. And then he's the one that also calls for help and then Obi-Wan says, "Don't answer that. It's a trap."
It's like, oh boy. And it's also like, wait a minute. There's like a few year gaps.
Yeah, because we know, so the start of Queen Shadow ends with the new election for the new queen. So after Padme has done all 4 of her years, because she did serve 2 terms, Phantom Menace was her first term, which we learned from Queen's Peril. We learned that she was elected, and then that was her first term. And we see, like, Quarsh Panaka enact a lot of his protective contingencies and create the Handmaiden program with her, of like, like, it already existed, but it wasn't one that was...
Originally, it was more a tradition.
Yeah.
Anything.
And by the time that before Padme was queen, it was already kind of changed from a bodyguard system to just regular handmaidens. Like, they weren't doubles or anything. But then Quarsh was like, let's bring that back.
Let's bring that back. I sense some nonsense around the corner, so we're gonna do it the old way.
Well, also, like, this book makes it very clear that Quarsh, we'll just call him Captain Panaka, because that's what he's known for most of the stuff. Although it gets confusing, because his wife, Mariak, is also Captain Panaka.
Oh, that reminds me. You were reading the audio version of this.
Yes.
Not reading,
listening
to the audio version of this. Meaning, there are names in here
like
I'm probably gonna say wrong.
Like Mariak?
Oh, no, I thought it was Mariak.
Quarsh?
Nope.
Which one?
Oh, God. I was confused for, the new queen.
Oh.
Rayada or...
Yeah, Rayada. You got it.
Okay, cool. I was like, is it like Spanish where the L is turned into a Y?
You got it. It's Rayada. Yeah, good job. Yay!
I was
that is a thing whenever I do the audiobook. It's like, you'll say a name and then I'll be like, this name.
And I was like, it's either Rayada or Relada. But that doesn't work either.
Yeah, it's Rayada. Queen Rayada.
She did not have to put Padme on the spot like that, though.
No, but I think she also knew that Padme much like Sabe, Padme is like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And so I think Rayada gave her a purpose. Whether she meant to or not, she gave Padme a purpose. And I think it was we see how good Padme is at it.
Yeah.
So it worked out. Because, like, this book is definitely just... Because we have to get from a point of where the senators don't quite trust or think that she can do this job to Padme being one of the best public speakers in the Senate. Next to Bel Organa. Like, Bel Organa's, like, the next best public speaker.
Yeah.
Because, like, most of the time, like, when a speech has to be given, it's Bel. But...
once fucking Trinebulon news has been shouted down.
Yeah, so one of the things we get in between each, like, because every few chapters it's a new part, we get Trinebulon News, which is an in-universe news network, and we get, like, their segment of what's going on so far in the story.
We get their, like, front page splash.
Yeah. Well, it's more like we hear, like, in the audiobook, they play it off, like, as you hearing, like, the TV, like, the Holo News, like, announcement, like, so as if you were watching TV and you were... That's how they play it in the audiobook. And I think it's kind of written to be read that way. If I remember correctly, it's italicized or whatever. It's been a minute since I've actually read the book. I can't remember if they like italicize it or not. I know for that type of stuff, yes. So, which generally means it's like almost read it like you're hearing it.
Yeah.
When it comes to like stuff like that, italicized can mean a lot of things.
Yeah, it can mean a lot of things. Typically, like, I'll see it used.
I used it for thoughts in one of my books.
That's the standard. Most people use it for thoughts.
But it's not all, like, it can have many purposes.
Yeah.
It depends on context. I think the context of this makes it clear,
like,
though, that it's...
The two things that I've seen it used for are typically thoughts, or, like, when, like, a letter or something is written.
Yeah. I think the context of this one makes it clear that it's kind of like, you can almost, like, newscast.
Yeah, that's what I'm imagining, like, oh, you turn on to, like, the radio and that's what they're talking about or some shit.
Context matters when reading. And so the real point is we find out
it's a slam piece.
Yeah, it's a slant. Yeah, it's all slander. Well, not really slander. But they are taking they are very close to having a...
Yeah, they are, like, a step away from it.
Yeah. They're like, we are technically telling the truth. Just a very skewed version of it. Enough to where we can't be...
Legally distinct truth.
Yeah, we can just legally distinct not be sued for slander. Just right on that barrier.
Yep.
We find out, though, that... Because Padme figures out pretty easily with the help of Sabe.
Yeah.
Because Sabe is, like, always staying up at night, like, reading the news pieces... and like going over every article, not just the one that we get from this group of Trinebulon. But she basically figures out, there's like a shell company and a shell company, and that's who, like, and then it's that the heads of all those shell companies is the Trade Federation, and it's like, so this is a Trade Federation owned news network. Mm-hmm. That explains it. And at the time, the other thing we're hearing, because in the first one it has nothing to do with Padme other than the trial of Viceroy Newt Gunray from from the war crimes he committed in Phantom Menace. And so, like, that's the closest it gets to being Padme adjacent on that first piece, because it's like Viceroy Newt Gunray is on trial for all these things that he did, like, and it's like his second trial because he's already like, no, this is his third, because he's already like been acquitted on the first two, but then Padme and the Naboo royals keep trying to get it retried because they're like, hey, no, there's enough evidence here.
And at the end of the book,
he gets away again.
He gets away after 4 trials.
3. This is the
third.
No,
this
is the fourth one?
Yeah, at the end of it, they're like, hey, he got away.
Again. Yeah, and then we learn about the bounty being placed on her head. Yeah. Which is like the setup for Attack of the Clones. Yep. Even though this is still a few years out from that. This is like a couple years out. Like, she's 18, I think we said, at the point of this book. Because not a lot of time passes. I think maybe half a year, maybe a year at most passes in this book. Because, like, we get a break from we get a break from the senatorial duties, which, like, and they say, like, the session their session ended, which is like usually, at least in American politics, that's almost like a half year when a session ends, and then they go on break and then they come back, depending on how they're doing, how things are going. It does not always mean that, because they could break whenever generally, but I thought it implied that maybe half the year, maybe the whole had taken place when they go on that break, which we see the formation of Padme making friends with the other senators. We get to see a lot of Bail Organa, which I love Bail Organa, mainly because in the movies it's Jimmy Smits, and Jimmy Smits is great. So plenty of Bail Organa. We get some Mon Mothma. So a lot of the formations that we see, like the allies that we see in the Clone Wars show that she has in the Senate, including Anaconda Farr, a.k.a. Uncle Anno, the Rhodian senator. And so a lot of her alliances are formed in this book.
Mm-hmm.
And she even makes friends with Queen Brea. Brea. Which,
okay.
Yeah, it's Brea. Which is the Queen of Alderaan. And we kind of... Which I like this setup because...
I remember, like, reading that name, and I'm like, okay, there's, like,
yeah,
three different ways to pronounce
it's Brea,
this.
because the H is more...
Oh, okay. Sorry, why did I think it was spelled B-R-A-E?
Well, hold on, let me check again. They pronounce it Brea. That's my main point.
Okay.
So yeah, you might be right, but anyways, because audiobook, I don't get to visualize the spelling. So they...
I have to do this shit phonetically sometimes, because it's like...
The nice thing about seeing them together, though, is that Brea and Belle, obviously, the big thing, they adopt Leia, you know, just discuss things and see who my husband is working with now.
Yeah.
So, although I think Belle gives he makes the call and is like, hey, my wife has invited you, the queen, which of course Padme's like, was it your idea? And he's like, it's a little me, little her.
Like, well, unofficially, yes. Officially, no.
So they go have tea, and they discuss things. They discuss the differences between a elected monarchy and a actual like regular like what's the word I'm looking for? It's just a bloodline
it's not
monarchy.
Constitutional monarchy, because that's slightly different.
Yeah, so it's just a bloodline monarchy where it's just So they kind of discuss the differences there. They talk about some of the politics and but then they also, I think we get a key story here, which is why Padme is so invested in Naboo. Because she tells the story of her dad's work and the destruction they saw of one of these villages in Naboo town, or no, one of the other planets. That's right, one of their neighbor planets. That was but it's still in the Naboo, like it's considered part of Naboo's territory.
Yeah.
And so she talks about that and like seeing that firsthand, and that's kind of what...
Oh, it wasn't just like the destruction of like one little place.
No, it was, it's all, it was...
A whole species is gone now.
Yeah. So
because
seeing that...
Something about like the sunlight for that particular planet was required for them, and they just couldn't find another place.
And I think seeing that is what she basically explains, that's kind of what opens her heart to like caring so much. And Brea, ironically, I sad that I can say ironically understands that because her heart doesn't work. But she understands that. She's like, yeah. And they talk about how like a similar thing is like that their people can either see them as too invested or not enough invested, depending on who you ask. And it's definitely like one of the things they're like, yep, that's something we have in common no matter what we do, is we can't please everybody. And
that is the nature that comes with like being in charge.
Yep. And so I think that is one of the hearts of this book. I think that scene is a very important scene to this book, and without it, the book is not the same.
Yeah.
Because we really do have to understand that, because while she's telling the story, there's also a bunch of pirates going on stealing supplies, and also another planet that is going through a very similar situation to Naboo, and that it is also being kind of held hostage to the Trade Federation. So history kind of repeating itself very quickly. And we also meet Mina Bonteri, which sets up some of the stuff for Clone Wars, because once again, another one of her friends that appears in Clone Wars, and we kind of start to see the development of the Separatist alliance in this book.
I don't know who you are.
Because we have that mystery caller who they'd never confirm.
No.
But I am 100% that it is Dooku.
That's what I figured. I was like, it'd be weird for like Chancellor Palpatine to just
like for like it to be Darth Sidious. No.
Yeah.
No. I think
I was like, you would use
your political face for this.
Yeah, you would use Dooku for this. You wouldn't Dooku. Well, I guess my son isn't going to join me, so I better figure something out.
Yeah. So
neither of my sons will be joining me, although one didn't get a choice.
Yeah. And so, like,
I can talk to my grandson.
I imagine, though, like, because I figure it's Dooku. I think it's very much clear that it's Dooku.
That's what I figure.
Because in Clone Wars, they make it clear that most of the senators don't realize the Sith face of it all. Like, there's rumors that Dooku's a Sith, because obviously the Jedi are saying that.
Yeah.
But the Separatists are like, we don't see any of that. We just see a politician.
Also, why would we care?
Also, he's an ex-Jedi, and so and like at this point, yeah, we don't see the difference between Jedi and Sith because we have not seen a Sith for a millennia.
Yeah.
Even with Darth Maul appearing 4 years ago, that's a rumor to most people because, yeah.
What happened during the invasion of Naboo? Oh, there was a weird fucking devil man who showed up.
Well, in fact, also on top of that, like, most politicians think Naboo was just some big conspiracy. Like, in this book, they make it clear that, like, half of the politicians don't believe Naboo was really under threat by the Federation.
Which we know is a lie.
But that's just because, like, Lot Dodd, the senator for the Trade Federation, is just such a good liar, or at least has enough good allies to kind of back him up that they can just spread this didn't happen, even as it's happening again. Which kind of shows both the failing.
Later on, as I understand it, it's not like an actual, we're holding them hostage.
No, it's not another, like,
we're holding the resources to rebuild your homes hostage.
Yeah, like, it's not
They're using, like,
but it is still, like,
financial...
a similar blockade situation.
Yeah. They're like, we could if you bought the materials from us.
Yeah, for like, an extra, like, you know.
For an exorbitant fee.
Yeah.
We're not going to phrase it that way.
You know those supplies that you lost the shipments to? We somehow got them. But we're going to make you pay again for them. It's basically what's going on. Because, like, once again, they don't ever confirm that the pirates were being funded by the Federation, but it is heavily implied that they were being funded by the Federation. Like, it is heavily implied that the Trade Federation was behind the pirates. Because, like, they talk about how the pirates are so small. Like, they talk about how, like, they're a very small-scale group.
Mm-hmm.
But also that somehow they are sweeping when it comes to, like, taking what they need. So they obviously have some heavy artillery backing them, which requires a lot of money. And they also, I think they mentioned that they have a lot of droids also. I can't remember. Okay, I know droids. I know besides the droid trap that Padme falls into on purpose. I think I thought they mentioned droids again somewhere else. But
nope.
Padme almost gets assassinated day one of her senatorial ship. On not even really day zero of the job, because she's on orientation. She's on job orientation and almost gets assassinated day zero.
They're like,
because they give her a guide droid to be like, hey, we're going to show you around your job. We have a droid that's programmed to do that. You're just going to follow the droid. It'll take you to where you need to go. Droid does not take her the correct way. And they very quickly pick up on it.
And they're like, this is a really shitty assassination attempt.
Let's
see what happens.
Yeah, which at this time, Corday was pretending to be Padme. See, I'm doing better at trying to keep up with all the handmaidens. Because we played that game the first time with Queen's Hope. We were like, let's name them all.
I have given up.
Yeah. It also doesn't help that they switch out a lot. Like, at this point, we now have...
So Corday's there.
Sashay is the new one?
Sashay is not.
No. Verche. Or Verse is the new one, which is Captain Panaka, both of them, their niece.
Yeah.
But not Typho's sister.
Yeah.
So his cousin as well, because Typho is also Panaka's...
Typho's here.
Yeah, because Typho is also Panaka's nephew. So I think they're also cousins, so I think it's a different parent, because I don't think they are siblings.
Yane is somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know where she is, but she's not here.
And then Rabe stayed behind on Naboo because she's doing she's working for the Queen, for Queen Rayada. So yeah, so that's kind of how that's working. Because we got to switch out for the ones that we see in Attack of the Clones, because we have new ones we have new ones in Attack of the Clones, and then it doesn't matter because then I used to know it. I used to know which one dies at the beginning. I think it's Corday.
Oh, damn.
I think it's Corday that dies at the beginning.
Sucks.
It's either Corday or Dorme. I know so many of my Star Wars mutuals are so pissed at me right now that I don't know this.
Well, I guess their plan worked. If we're forgetting their names and which is which.
It is Corday. I was right. I knew. I was right.
That's a shame.
Go with my gut. Yeah. So Corday is the one who dies in Attack of the Clones, which we'll talk about that when we get to Attack of the Clones. We still have a few episodes before that.
Sorry, the mic cord was caught on my boot.
Oh.
So I had to
But yeah, so like we get some shitty attempts, which is also where Belle's like. Belle finds them and meets them for the second time, because they mentioned that they met before, but under like non-official circumstances, like they weren't like meeting as.
He's like, "Hey, you guys know this section of the building is supposed to be like
off
demolished,
limits,
right?
Yeah. Like this is
you guys should get out of here.
Like this is a what's the word for whenever a building is
condemned?
Yeah, it's a condemned building. So they're like, yeah, this is a condemned building that's supposed to be, like, destroyed today. Like, what are you doing here?
Come on, let's get out of here.
Which, of course, then develops a kind of naive and dumb perspective for a lot of senators, because the word spreads fast, and it doesn't help that Trinebulon News reports on it as well.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Mina Bonteri is there to be like, don't worry, anybody who believes that stuff, who reads that stuff and believes it is stupid. Like, senators don't listen to that type of stuff. We don't listen to tabloids.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
And if they do agree with that stuff, it's because they already didn't like you and they were never going to like you. That's basically, like, Mina's take on it. And so, yeah, with all that, I mean... And then, of course, Padme is also trying to enact her... anti-slavery type stuff.
And Palpatine essentially tells her, hey, stay in your lane.
Yeah, because... So he plays it smart, though. He doesn't, like, outright say that. He goes, hey, it would look bad if you were trying to do a major overhaul law on your first day, and something that I'm already on the committee for.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of find a committee of your own. That way, because it would look bad if the senator from Naboo is working with the Supreme Chancellor who is from Naboo, because then it looks like I'm showing favoritism. And of course, Padme does see the logic in that. She's like, yeah, that makes sense. Although she, like, later on when the bill fails, Palpatine stops underestimating her, which is why she eventually does die, because Palpatine's like, I'm not underestimating you, and I'm going to use your husband against you as well, so I'm not going to underestimate you, though, because I know what you're capable of. Like, even during Clone Wars, he starts to realize, okay, I can't, like, we gotta...
Padme Amidala have become a rival.
Yeah, like, I would argue the one person who goes up against Palpatine toe-to-toe who's a non-Jedi is Padme. I think Padme, like, if, like, the Force wasn't involved and it was just, like, a battle of wits, Padme potentially goes full-on toe-to-toe with him. Now, ultimately he'll probably still win, but it will be a long battle.
Yeah.
Like, he will go through it against her. I think it also helps that she has some really smart allies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she has Bail Organa, she has Mon Mothma, she has... I wouldn't really put Anaconifar on the smart list, but he at least has a caring heart, which is, you know, the positive trait of him, which is why he still stays close to Padme, like, why Padme, like, I think even after some stuff in Clone Wars is like, we will keep you close still, because you do care about your people still, even if you make some even if you made a dumb decision once. Because he does make a dumb decision once in Clone Wars.
There are certainly times where I, like, feel bad for senators, because it's like, first and foremost, the concerns of my people are my top priority, and sometimes that causes you to do shit you don't want to do.
And I think also we learn in this book, like, that can also, as a senator, make people kind of give you a stink eye.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're like...
Because it's like, you're not really loyal to the Republic, are you?
Because you got to be loyal to the whole, not just to your people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Padme learns that balance in this book.
Yeah, and it's a hard one to, like, deal with, you know?
I think... Because the bill she comes up with... Because we also meet... we learn how she becomes friends with Rush Clovis in this.
Yes.
And... Because... They go to that planet that we talked about, that's having the Trade Federation issue.
Yeah.
And being extorted, I guess. Yeah, extorted by the Trade Federation. They go to that planet, once again seeing, like, the devastation that it's causing, not having the supplies that they need, like water, food.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, that's the first thing they mention. They're like, we need water.
Yeah.
Because Padme knows the order to act. Like, she's like, what do we need first? What do you need in a month? What do you need in a year? And they were like, well, first we need water.
Mm-hmm.
And then we need food. And then we need water again.
Yeah. And then it's like, a more clear thing is, oh, first you need is water control because of how it is at the moment.
Yeah. Because water...
Actually, I'd say the problem right now is they have too much water in specific places.
Yeah. But it's not, like, clean, drinkable... Like, it's not stuff that they can give to the people to drink.
Yeah,
and
there's that.
That's what they mean.
Too much water in places that it shouldn't be.
So that's what they mean by they need water. They need drinkable water.
Mm-hmm.
And so Rush... Or Clovis, I guess, because he prefers to be called Clovis. And part of the Naboo culture is you... Use the name you prefer. So Clovis, this is the first time he's really seen this type of...
Yeah.
This is his version of that story that we had with Padme earlier, where the first time she's seen destruction, like, on a planet scale, and how it devastates people and what can happen when power corrupts.
Mm.
And this is the first time Clovis has seen that. Because, like, we learned Clovis' story, you know, that we know in Clone Wars, which is parents died when he was young, but thankfully he was adopted by the Banking Clan, by one of the Banking Clan people, right? So, he has a father, but it's like, but it's a very sheltered life that he's had.
Yeah.
Even with that kind of tragic backstory. Because he was young enough where it wasn't something that affected him. Not too much anyways. Like, he still has some emotional stunts from it, but not enough to, like, hold him back.
Mm-hmm.
But this kind of makes him realize that something needs to be done. Which is also where we start to kind of... Because he has some communications with Dooku as well. So we're starting to see why people are thinking why the Confederacy is a good idea for Star Wars, because there's, like, Dooku's got some points.
Yeah.
The democracy ain't working the way it should. And that's a conversation that's on both sides, like, because, like, Padme and Bell have a similar discussion where they're like, what happens when the democracy doesn't work the way it's supposed to? And they're like, well, we fight harder to bring it back to where it should be. We don't abandon it. which is arguably what the Confederate, like, that's why the CIS kind of exists, is to abandon it and just start over because they're like, it doesn't work. So
we're just gonna bail.
Yep.
There was no pun intended.
I know.
He didn't bail.
No, Bell didn't bail. He stuck it out. Even when it became an empire.
Yep.
And then he was like, okay,
this
maybe the Confederacy was right.
working.
Maybe the Confederacy was right.
And then they killed him.
The same type of people that corrupted the Republic.
Yeah.
The corruption has just switched side. Like, it's now playing both sides, and the corruption is on either end, and really nothing's changed. And I think that's why they don't succeed. Where, why I think, while the Republic is not perfect, it was still the better option. Because, like, it makes, the way the Confederacy kind of works is that Dooku is, like, the ultimate say, almost, he's not quite an emperor, but he's not quite a dictator, but he's there, he's almost there.
Yeah.
Even with the ability, like, even with the allowance for them to have a vote in their own version of a Senate, they still kind of listen to Dooku at the end of the day. So, I mean, so we see a lot of that set up, and we see a lot, it goes into that stuff, and I think it does it well. There's not a lot of down I have other than, like, the fact that it's just the setup for this book, and it's also, like, by that I mean the fact that it's the middle of the timeline, but it's also the first book, and stuff we talked about at the beginning of our discussion. I don't really have a lot of negative beyond that. It is definitely the weaker of the three books, but it's also the first of the three books. So I don't give it too much crap for that reason. Because we discussed that
about, like, we were joking a little bit earlier about, like, how this is. I was like, I'm not mad at happy with it either.
Yeah, because
it's like, I've seen this writer do better, but I'm not mad.
So similar
about,
to
like, the disappointed, like.
So similar to how I kind of pointed out where I think it's weak. What do you like? Where does it fail for you?
I think it's just because I didn't care much for the subject matter, and I think that's.
I love the Star Wars politics, so maybe that's why I found more.
Like, I'm glad that Mothma, Padme, Clovis, they were like, okay, we're gonna pull a 3-day all-nighter, and that does lead.
Unfortunately, Bon Terry is not involved in the help with that, because Padme, like, while she was, like, in the trenches, she still had, like, the ability to keep track of who helped when.
Yeah.
Bon Terry was instead making phone calls to Dooku.
Yeah. And that does lead to, like, one of the most, like, genuine speeches, I think, in this book, where I'm like, oh, good, you've actually got one that would work.
Yeah, we start to see, because once again, like I mentioned, like, Padme develops as a senator throughout this book. It is
a very good, like, if you want to read that kind of story, like, seeing.
Because I do think
it does cover the transition from Padme operating as, like, oh, I'm a senator, not a monarch now, so I have to think and speak a little bit differently.
Yeah, because she has to stop the Amidala voice, for one. Yeah. Because, like, that's something that they, like realize that they can't really. That is one of those things where, like, the Amidala voice does sound very regal, however, it's also very dispassionate, and that's not always going to work on the Senate floor. It's especially not going to work on the Senate floor. It's kind of one of the weak points. It's kind of one of the weaker parts of what she does in the Phantom Menace, because she uses the Amidala voice when she's making that plea. And I don't think that's why it failed. I think it wasn't going to work anyways, because Palpatine points out the machinations of the corruption within the Republic, and while he is the reason that a lot of those corruptions are working, he does have a point that they're there, but he's the one that made the problems. So I don't know if that's
just a little Palpatine, and like, does he know me? Does she know?
But yeah, so he he points out, the Trade Federation's corruption, and so I think it was going to fail anyways. but I think her using the Amidala voice during that moment
did not help.
No. Also, it's one of the funny moments of her first day. She's like, they may think I'm dumb for almost being assassinated by a droid on day 0, but they're gonna think I was great because of what I did with Chancellor Valorum and getting him sacked, and it's like, no.
It's like, why would you think this?
In fact, most people hate you for doing that.
Yeah.
Because we learned that, like, a lot of people are like, no, Valorum's a good guy. Valorum is great. Why'd you get him?
And she's, like, realizing, oh, no wonder Valorum, like, looked like he'd aged 30 years.
Yeah. Because he was, like, legitimately trying, but he's just... It's the discussion we've had before regarding the Chancellors from the High Republic to the prequels, is that Valorum is a non-corrupt politician who's inefficient.
Mm-hmm.
Not because he's not trying, but just because
the system won't let him work the way
it needs to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas we see with
like with Greylark and so
we see
I give Greylark a lot of shit,
but they are non.
But that's for her parenting, not her political policy.
They are non-corrupt and effective.
Yeah.
Same thing with Greylark's co-Senate co-chancellor.
Fuck, what's his name?
We're cheating.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Palpatine is like, I will be all of the problems.
He is corrupt and efficient.
Yeah.
I think it begins with an M. If I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just going to open the Wikipedia page for Supreme Chancellor. Oh, his last name was Marlowe. Yeah. Orlin Marlowe. So, yeah, he is non-corrupt, but no, he's efficient.
Yeah.
The High Republic basically just has really efficient Supreme Chancellors.
Yeah.
Like, we have yet to see an inefficient Supreme Chancellor.
We're done playing games.
Although, I would argue Phase 3, Lena is a little bit less efficient, but that's...
Yeah.
That's because they're
that's
not
because like the galaxy is like cut in half.
Yeah,
so.
like it's a case of the
circumstance,
which is very similar to arguably the same situation for Valorum.
Yeah,
it's circumstantial stuff that's holding
the problem
him
with so in 3 is that the galaxy's been cut in half, quite literally.
Yeah, they're basically in wartime without officially being in wartime. Like, because they haven't officially gone, okay, this is a war.
Mm-hmm.
But it's essentially a war.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like, with Valorum, it's a case of, like, I'm trying, man.
It's also, I'm in a peaceful time, and so it's like, peacetime Supreme Chancellors are there. Yeah. And so I think he's kind of, he's resting on his laurels in a way.
Mm.
Where he's like, okay, there's no war, there's no major attacks going on. I can kind of skid by and run things on a peaceful situation. But at the same time, so many things in the background are not peaceful, and that's what's screwing him over.
Yeah.
Like, because once wartime, he is not a wartime Supreme Chancellor.
Nope.
Whereas I would argue Lena So is actually a great balance of both. Mm-hmm. She is a perfect peacetime Supreme Chancellor, but also really great wartime Supreme Chancellor. She's like, I know, this is what we're going to do. We're under attack by these guys, let's go. And I think also it helps that she has a lot of smart people around her.
Yeah.
Like Admiral Kronara and the Jedi. Like, she listens to them. Even if she doesn't always agree with them, like, she'll sit down with Elzar, hear him out on his plans. Even if they end up disagreeing on, like, the ultimate plan, they will discuss it. So she has a really good counsel to lean on. We don't really know a lot about Valorum's counsel and who he leaned on.
No, we don't.
We know him and Yoda were close-ish. Like,
yeah.
But that's because as the Grand Master of the Jedi, that's
Yoda
just
has special things he can do.
That's just a natural position of
and I
having
talking
meetings.
About the Force.
Well, yeah, it's just a natural position that he has to have these meetings with Supreme Chancellors. So I would imagine it's a similar, like, it's actually interesting that he does not meet with Lena during the High Republic phase.
Yeah, because he's busy.
I guess also he dropped, yeah, because he's no longer, like, he had the Grandmaster position, but he gave it away.
Yeah.
But now that guy's dead, so.
Whoops.
So maybe it's back to Yoda. I don't know. But Yoda's also dealing with his own stuff that we haven't talked about yet because we haven't gone over those comics yet. But I've read them and Yoda's in it. Really, that's all I want to talk about. I think we covered the major stuff. We can talk about the epilogue. That's the last thing, I guess. So throughout it, Sabe is developing a relationship with Tanra, who is like one of the members of the Naboo security force. And he basically, as part of the initiative for the anti-slavery stuff, Padme sends them to Tatooine to buy Shmi, which she doesn't like, which I don't like that word. I don't like that I had to use it, but that's the best word you can use in this situation, because they're basically like, we're going to buy her freedom. We're going to buy her and then just set her free, essentially, is the plan. They're going to try to operate within the system that exists. That's the plan. Yeah, they do save 25, so but it's still, like, Padme, of course, is still, like, we could have done, Sabe is like, we could have done more.
Yeah.
They all are.
They were like,
Unfortunately, the reality of how things were, they realized.
And they realized, like, oh, well, there is, like, there are people who want to do this. When we first came here, we accidentally talked with all of the scumbags, so they thought we were scumbags too, and didn't bother.
So we had to reset.
Yeah.
We had to change identities and try again. And so, I mean, we know that groups like that exist because Queen's Hope. We learned that later on. Beru helps found one of these groups because with the White Suns, where their goal is to free as many slaves as possible. They developed the way to turn off the chips. So there is hope for the future, but of course, in this moment, we don't have that yet. And so. Because I think the main reason that Beru does that is because of Shmi. Like Shmi is like a mother to her, and so because the Queen's Hope talks about how motherhood, this one is less about that, but Queen's Hope is definitely about motherhood as a major theme. With Brea and Beru and Padme and even Leia to a degree, but yeah.
And back to this book.
Yeah.
Sabe epilogue.
Yeah, so Tanra. It's after Revenge of the Sith funeral. So Revenge of the Sith is still happening, but it's after the funeral. Sabe is distraught.
Yeah.
Because she's dedicated her life to Padme.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. Everybody's dead. Padme is dead. Anakin's dead. Obi-Wan is dead.
And Tanra is comforting her the best he can.
Yeah.
Like, he gives her the space she needs, but also is, like, there. And he asks the very important question of, so what now? And, of course, she's like, well, most people, when they ask me that question, mean, what do I do now that Padme's gone? Like, what, like, because that's the question everybody always kind of asks me is, what do I plan to do once I'm no longer hanging with Padme? But she's never really considered it heavily. But Tanra, on the other hand, is asking, what do you want to do about this situation? Like, what's the play? Like, stuff that leads to the Amidalans that we get in the Vader comic, obviously.
Like, what's the plan here?
Yeah. Because things have changed. C.O. Bibble, of course, like we said, he quit being, he's no longer, he resigned as governor. Also, governor is not an elected position anymore. The Empire kind of just decides, and they gave it to Quarsh, which makes sense because one of the things that, sadly, that the Queen's Trilogy give Panaka... Well, this is also not the first book to confirm that some of that stuff, but because another book came out first that's set in the Imperial times, but this kind of just gives the backdrop for that Panaka is a bit militaristic, fascist almost. Like, he's leaning on that because Padme makes it clear that that's part of the disagreements that she and Panaka had, and it's why Panaka's not her security in episode 2.
Yeah.
And it's why he's no longer security for Rayada. He's like, he resigns because of political disagreements.
Yeah.
And also a lot of people distrust him because he has that militaristic fashion about him.
Mm-hmm.
It's why he brought the Handmaiden program back, because he's just like, I don't trust anything that's like, he is paranoid. Something Padme makes clear, because Belle asks her, because Belle's one of the only people to figure out that it was not Padme and it was Sabe pretending to be her. Mm-hmm. And of course she's like, the only other person is a Jedi. And Belle's like, well, I'm in good company then.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, she's like, how'd you figure out? And he's like, oh, I just got lucky.
I could kind of like maybe read some of the facial expressions being different, but that's about it.
Yeah, I was able to like, essentially I got lucky because of the lighting.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, so so he asks her about the program. He's like, are you paranoid? And she's like, that's part of it, but also I have legitimate reasons, because every time I think I'm getting paranoid, that's when I get attacked.
Yeah. And she's like, it's a weird, it's a thank you, but also fuck you.
Yeah.
Situation towards Panaka.
Yeah. And so,
like, thank you for doing this, but fuck you for doing a bunch of other stuff too.
Yeah, whereas it's very clear that Panaka is just straight up paranoid.
Yeah. Admittedly, as head of security, not the worst trait to have.
But we see that it takes him
over time.
We see that it's taking him a step too far.
Yeah.
Because like he wants to bring back some of the old defenses and a military and stuff. Stuff that Naboo's like. Unfortunately, that's also the reasons that Palpatine is like, I trust you to be in charge of Naboo now. Because
it's like, I want my home planet to be safe.
Safe.
In big air quotes.
Yeah. Really, I just want to make sure I have control of the people. Mm-hmm. And I think Quash, it's a similar situation. To put this into D&D terms, it's a very similar situation to Grand Duke Ravengard. He is very similar. But that's a situation that maybe you don't know too much about him. But yeah,
I'm familiar.
He's the guy in charge of the Flaming Fist in Baldur's Gate.
Okay.
Yeah. At least by the time of like the modern D&D era, not Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, obviously. He is also very militaristic and has that same kind of like, I'm doing what I think is best for the city, but I'm also overdoing some stuff that can be very skewed towards fascism if we're not careful. And unfortunately, in Quash's situation, it's just skewed just a little too far.
Also, like...
And also, I think a big sign that he is in the wrong is the fact that not even his wife or nephew or niece are there when he's made governor.
Yeah. They're like, it's kind of weird how your family quietly disappeared.
How they did not show up to you being put into office.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't look good.
No. So I think it showed, because Mariak seems to have a more balanced head about her when it comes to like how she enacts a lot of the Handmaiden program. She's like, we developed this for you, and so if you do it without telling us, okay, we get it. But also, it'd be nice if you told us.
And they're like, we run your fucking security. It would be nice to know.
But like, also, we get it.
I like that Padme sets designated time like between stuff so that her security can yell at her. They're like, stop putting your life in danger, you dumb idiot.
Yeah.
We're supposed to look after you, but we can't do that when you lie to us about where you are.
But going back to the epilogue, so that way we can kind of wrap this one up. The last thing we get is that Bail Organa makes a phone call to them. Because Bail knows everything, just about. He doesn't know the Anakin of it, but he knows everything else. Like, he knows that the Jedi were betrayed. He knows, because in Revenge of the Sith we see he's there.
Yeah.
So he knows the reality of most of the situation. And so he calls, so that way assumedly to set up them being part of the rebellion, but we don't see the conversation. It's kind of just Sabe answers, uses the Amidala voice to be like,
"What do you want?"
Yeah, and then
that
you get the little straight to credits at that moment. It's I mean, it's a good. I like it because it's a political. I like Star Wars political dramas, and so I think this does really well in that regard. Although I do think it's not. I feel it's not focused enough. It very much goes tangent on a lot of stuff, but because I feel like there could have been a more through line to the main plot of the pirates and stuff. But we get there. Plus, a lot of that tangential stuff is important. It's the stuff of how does Padme form these alliances before she can deal with the main problem.
Yep.
It's a 7, maybe 7.5 if on a good, like, if you ask me on a different day. It depends on the day.
Yeah, I'm about in the same boat.
Like it's not bad. It's just could be better. It's passable. It's a passable Star Wars book.
Yeah, and it's the first of a trilogy, so
yeah. It feels weird to say that with it being in the middle chronologically, but yes. Yeah. So would you say now with all of the books read, would you say read them in publishing order or chronological?
I'd say read them in chronological.
Just so you get the context of Sabe and Padme and the Handmaidens situation. I agree. Yeah, do Peril, Shadow, Hope. Don't do Hope, Peril, Shadow, and don't do Shadow, Peril, Hope. One of those was our order. One of them was publishing
Fucking
order.
Whack-ass reading order.
So yeah, that's going to be it for this week. Thank you all for watching today's episode of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I've been your host, Caleb. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe to us. You can find us at Escape Reality Films on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and TikTok. You can also show your support for us by joining our Patreon, which is at Escape Reality Films. Shout out to Jennifer Brantley. Woo! There you can watch our YouTube content before it's publicly available. So if you want to watch sessions of Grimhall of Boom Boys, I guess, because that's Acquisitions is caught up in terms of what's on YouTube and what's on Patreon. So Grimhall of Boom Boys for D&D content is what you can catch up on, and maybe today or tomorrow the final episode of the current arc that we just finished will be on there. Meanwhile, on YouTube today or yesterday, they just started an arc.
Yesterday, I believe, was like
the start of the.
We had like a weird premiere thing for Boom Boys a couple of weeks ago, but now we should have like
the next episode of that.
Yeah, that came out yesterday.
Yes, so session 5 came out yesterday. That's what it is. So the second episode of that arc. But you can listen to all that for just $5 a month, along with other stuff like me playing video games and stuff. Also, be sure to check out our Discord, which is also linked wherever you are watching, so you can become a part of our community. You can also find me on Twitter at EscapeReality94 and Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Caleb.Lockwood. Seth.
Yes.
You were ready.
Every Sunday from 5 to 7 Central Standard Time, you can catch me and some friends of ours over at Trials of Naboo on YouTube. If you want to know what's happening, you should stop by.
All right. Well, once again, thank you all for watching. Join us next week as we talk about the canon Choose Your Own Adventure book, Choose Your Destiny, an Obi-Wan and Anakin adventure. I have spoken.
Y'all have a good one.
Tonight, finally feeling free and it feels so right.